No, that's yours, Pat. You can have it. Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to go ahead and get the meeting started and acknowledge all board members are present with the exception of Chuck Merrihew. And we will start by entertaining a motion to accept the June 27, 2019 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Joe, report from the secretary.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
I have no new correspondence to report, but I would like to welcome Allison Magnarelli from our office, who's filling in for Christine Enright today.
Welcome, Allison. Make sure that mic is close. We're going to have a lot to ask you during this meeting. Just teasing. Happy to have you here. Okay.
Completes my report.
Good to go. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Next up, we will have our program manager report. I see Chris back there. Morning.
Morning. How are you?
Great. You?
Good. So give you a quick update on where we stand here. I'll start in the upper left here underneath the project bids and procurement section under Fowler's site. We have received bids on that. We talked about that last time. A letter of intent has been issued. We met with the contractor and did a de-scope meeting, and so we're moving forward with that. We anticipate getting to be able to get going here in the fall. The key there is to just get the contract fully executed and get the insurances in place so we can advance that. At Henniger, anticipate bidding that in the fourth quarter. That's kind of status quo. Same thing with Clary Elms, Danforth. We're moving those forward. Under project financing, I think the piece there is the financial plan will be presented to JSCB and to the school board, and then following that, it will go to OSC for approval. For their approval, we need that prior to the next borrowing that'll be coming down the line here, first quarter of next year. The next piece was budget allocations. We had talked about this a little bit before. What we're doing, and we're in the middle of this now, is looking at the project as a whole for cost to date as we start to dial down on some of the tranche one projects and evaluating what we've spent and evaluating what we had budgeted versus what was spent, and looking forward to see how we can then look at that and future projects so that we have opportunities, if there's ability to do additional work on future projects, that we can do that. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing with that. We're assessing that. We're assessing that and looking at that and evaluating as we move forward. Don't have anything particular to speak to today in terms of what that does or doesn't do to a building budget. It may not do anything. It may be just that we have realized savings that can be applied elsewhere as we move it forward. Under design and approval, Henniger, since I wrote this report, actually we received approval from SED for Henniger, so that completes our approval process for all of the projects. So they're all approved, with the exception, of course, of Shea, which we hadn't advanced at all. Under Fowler's site and the incidental allowance, we had a meeting with SED to confirm the amount that the incidental allowance can be expanded, and based or predicated on that, we've evaluated that and determined what the local share component of the Fowler fields will be. So we have that in hand now. That's thus the reason we're comfortable moving forward with the letter of intent issued for that. Okay. Under construction update, I mean, as a whole, we're into it on all the buildings at the moment. If you've driven by any of them, I'm sure you can see there's a beehive of activity, and we'll continue to be an active sprint right up to the school and then beyond. I think, speaking just again broadly, once school resumes, work is continuing at almost every building in some capacity. So just wanted to manage that expectation a little bit in terms of that all the workers don't go away come September. I mean, we're still going to be having phased construction on most of them. That said, Blodgett moving along well. Just to give you a little bit of snippets there, the big thing there, and there's a picture, if you see underneath the pictures under Blodgett, that auditorium roof, that's quite an undertaking. We're literally tearing the roof off in its entirety to daylight and then putting it back on. So it's been a fun little endeavor given the weather that we've been experiencing lately in terms of trying to keep the rain out. The good news is, nobody's underneath it, nobody's living in there, and so makes it a little bit more tolerable, but a challenge nonetheless. And if you've been by, it's quite an undertaking. So coupled with that is all the new windows that are going in, that's and the repointing, so that's really starting to change the face of the building. If you've been by there to see it, it's looking nice. Mm-hmm. So Never seen so many lifts in one place at one time. It's pretty significant. Under grant, we're moving along at grant as well. Wanted to point out that this is a case where we did have some additional funding. Not additional funding, we had some funding available within the project to expand the masonry scope that's done there. The contractor over there has been doing a really nice job, and there was some preventative and ongoing maintenance that we'd like to accomplish, which we've now done and released them. That will take them probably through October in terms of some of the work over there that'll be happening. But a majority of the precast is up now, and you're starting to see the new precast, and it looks good. So we have some other stuff going on over there as well. We've got to finish the paving over there. We got other work that'll be continuing, but that's moving forward as well. At Bellevue, again, this is another one. We're in a sprint to the end here. Coming together well. The focus is right now is predominantly on your mechanical systems, most specifically the HVAC system. Bringing that together and activating that and commissioning that is the real focus right now. We've got some work to do there, especially as it relates to the lower level. So we'll get the HVAC in, then we can advance the rest of the finishes, put the ceilings in, and continue. So, but I think we're going to be in good shape there. We might have a few things that aren't quite where we want them to be, but it's looking good. Good. The Fowler roof, again, dodging the raindrops on Fowler roof, but the roofer feels confident that he can at least have the roofing portion, the membrane portion, the built up in place, and then might have to follow into the fall with the metal work for doing the trim on the perimeter of the building, which again is not a, it's not a showstopper in terms of the ability to use the building. You'll be weather tight and you'll be back in, but again, you'll see some folks still there at the building come September, October. So, any questions on any of the construction updates there? Just
on Fowler, we've had so many conversations about it. When it begins to move forward in the fall, what are we gonna see first? What's the initial work that's going to
the focus initially is to relocate the CSO, the combined sewer outfall that runs through the middle of the site. We want to put the new one in because we need that. That's step one to get that. So the hope is we could get that in and in place, and then get the site rough graded. We've got some grade work to do in terms of leveling that site and getting it to there. And then beyond that, we'll see how quickly the weather closes in on us. But that was the objective, was to trying to get that utility out of the way, so that allows us to then start driving those piles that we have to put in.
So with the piles being driven, then again, just going back to the different iterations, we're no longer looking at any settling of the preloading the site.
No preloading of it. It's all driven wooden piles, to the tune of 8 foot on center, Nate? 9 foot on center, and to a tune of how many?
1,400.
Yeah.
Wow.
Several. Okay. So, and they'll be over there for a while doing that. So, but to answer your question, so no preloading, but it's driving those piles and then pouring that slab. Right. And again, it'll be how far can we get? We'll go as far as we can, and as long as weather will permit.
Great, thank you.
Chris, you said wood?
Yeah. They're wood piles that they drive. They're typically either wood or steel, or they would drill a case on and pour it with concrete. But these are driven wooden piles. So it's what the engineer, similar to what they did if you saw Lowe's when they put Lowe's in over on the boulevard. That was not a great substrate there for them to work with, and they drove. It's common in like a marine application too if you have soils that aren't great.
Just a custom sand steel.
Right. Yep.
What's the advantages of wood being in that?
Obviously, the material's less expensive for doing the wood, and if they're not worried about. Again, I'm not this. You'll get me into an engineering role here, but the steel is a more predictable bearing capacity, and I think the wood for what we're doing is a better option for that. I don't know if I can give you a much better explanation than that, but it will work for what we're going to do for the application.
Is it relevant that we're not putting a building on top of it?
I think to some extent, because you can the predictability of the steel beam is more of a predictable than of the wood. But we're going to pour the concrete slab over the top of this, and it's just basically to give it some bearing capacity. So.
And I know you can't expect the unexpected, but what is going to be the timeline on this field, the finish date?
Oh, to complete it? Right now we're projected for spring of 2021, correct? of 2021.
Spring of 2021, yes.
Okay.
You set the expectation.
Yes,
Clock's ticking.
it's in the documents. That's, yeah, it was formally communicated, so. And to your previous point, can I, we can't, it's hard to predict the unexpected, so I do expect that we'll find a few surprises along the way, so.
And I'm sure we will, but at some point, we're going to have to wrap it up. We were so intent on getting a field, so we need to get a field.
Fair enough. Okay. Did you something?
Yeah, for Grant, just to connect the dots with the resolution we have today, the extra funds we're allocating, they're already within that project's budget?
For the grant,
The
yes.
contingency, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes. Yes, it's just reallocation, yep.
so it's
Yep.
no
No
new
change,
financial impact.
right, no change, right.
Very
Correct.
good, thank you.
So the follow-up question to that, Chris, is that with about a quarter of the project being completed, barring any mitigating circumstances, you don't see that it's going to exceed your cap of 300?
At the moment, no. No.
total project.
At the moment, no. We're still, with that increase to the 300, we still have some work to do with respect to allocating even a portion of that. That's not been fully allocated to buildings. We're still holding an allowance, if you will, or an unallocated allowance to be applied. And that's something that, as part of looking at the buildings of what we've done to date and cost to date, and what we have in terms of the cap, and evaluating how we spend that. So, did that answer the question? Okay. All right, I'll move over, if we're set on construction, over the constraint section. Just, again, being mindful of just making sure that the one of the X factors that we have there is once we put the revised financial plan, and we need to get the OSC approval, and we budgeted time for that. Just being mindful of that as we move forward, that we do get it in and get it back. The execution of the contract for Fowler, we spoke to that. That's one that we just want to make sure we, make sure we get information and bonds and insurance and utilization plan timely from the contractor and able to put us in position to issue the contract. Ed Smith we've talked about this one for the past several months, is still something that we're watching really closely and are being cautiously optimistic about the ability to complete that to the extent that we deem complete, meaning different people have different versions of what done is. So we're watching that one very closely. I think we're going to do kind of a walk and talk on August 2nd, so that we understand what will and won't be there, or what concessions would have to have, if in fact there are some, of what's not going to be done, and evaluate that on the 2nd to see where it is. The contractor's 100% committed to getting there. He's working the overtime. He's putting the staff. He's staffed up on it. We have LaChase having meetings with them on probably 2 times a week to keep our finger on that and keep it moving forward. But just got to see where we're at in the 2nd. So Bellevue we spoke to previously. I think the piece there is getting the mechanical systems done, and then we've got a fair amount of flooring to get done there. We got a lot of corridors, a lot of floors, a lot of cafeteria, a lot of lower level stuff, a lot of flooring to be done. So utility coordination, we're working through that. Had some ups and downs, but we're working through it. Grant, we spoke about the additional exterior masonry, extending it. And Huntington, I did add here, we've got some concern about renovation in some of the rooms over there in terms of the ability to get those done, and we're assessing that with the general contractor right now. And that's due in part to, I think, capacity of a particular subcontractor that he has, and we're trying to work through to figure out how we can get that, but we don't want to tear it out and then not be able to get it back to where we want it. So we're looking at that one. And Blodgett, I think we mentioned that before in terms of that being extended into the fall for what we're doing over there. That concludes what I had. Any other questions?
Yes.
Well, I have a question. You said that they're going to take the roof off and then it's going to be open, and so it's going to be closed by the time the school opens.
Well, you won't be in that area, but yes, the intent is to have it there. And Pat, that photo that you're looking at where you see the blue portion, that's actually a tarp.
Oh,
So there's a tarp over the top of the roof on that half of the roof. So it's not open like we leave it open. We're protecting it, but I mean, it's only protected by tarps and at the moment.
I thought it was retractable roof.
No.
My study day at Syracuse, he had the roof partly open.
Calvin, that change would have jumped out at you if we'd gone to a retractable roof.
Makes sense.
I want to ask about the manpower availability.
Yep.
Because, okay, the market is busy, you can see that around here, but are we using our resources as thoroughly as we can? Because I have a lot of folks that have experience, but they're not getting the work.
Okay.
So how are we choosing, and why we have constraints with manpower?
I mean, in terms of, I'm not sure, can you rephrase, because I'm not sure how to answer the question in terms of.
There's contractors that could be subcontracted out.
Okay.
But they're not being asked to do the work.
Not being utilized.
Not being given the opportunity to do the work. Because I feel that if we had that happen, we wouldn't have a shortage of manpower.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, we have means to connect folks. I know with Lamont's office and through Landon and Ryan and some of the others, if there's folks that are looking, we have an opportunity to connect those dots and have been, and we'll continue to do that in terms of connecting them to the general contractors that are looking for people. So, I mean, that is in place. So I would say, are we doing that? Yeah. Are we actively doing that? When we have folks, we just had a group of folks that graduated from the last training that we did, and they came into our office, kind of gave them a list of the general contractors that are engaged in the project so that they could then reach out to them to see if there's opportunities.
I just waved Lamont up here. I wanted to have him weigh in on that question if you can, Lamont. Step right up.
Counselor, so we have the goals, and we've been able to meet those goals throughout the project. Well, we're meeting the goals. We're exceeding actually the goals right now, as far as in every category we're exceeding them, to my understanding. We even have some new companies like Marcus L. Davis is one of the new. So we're working to get new companies on the project. But it's really up to the prime when they're choosing from our directory on what companies they want to utilize. We don't really have no say over that, but they are meeting the goals. We are working with them to get some new companies, some opportunities, especially if the companies are calling me or Landon and Ryan. We're really trying to make an effort to work with contractors to make sure they get a fair opportunity. So if it's some companies that you know specifically, have them reach out to us, and we work tirelessly to get them opportunity.
Okay, and I appreciate that, because I think everything I've been hearing from every direction, not just the JSCB, is we're going to intentionally seek out different folks and different opportunities.
Right.
And let me be clear, I'm not just talking about black folks, okay?
Right.
I'm talking about everybody.
Right.
And we have to intentionally look for all of these people out of all these different pockets.
Certainly. Just have them call my office, and we'll work with them like we've been working with. I use Marcus as a good example because he's here, and he was a person that worked on the project, got certified with me, and he probably would be a good witness to say it didn't take him very long. He had to put some work in to get an opportunity, but he stayed, working towards that goal by calling me and Landon and Ryan, and he eventually got an opportunity. So, all right.
Thanks, Lamont. Any other questions for Chris? Okay. Good. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
We have several resolutions today.
We do. Yeah, Joe, why don't you just start walking us through them?
Very good. Resolution number 35 would be the monthly payment to Landon and Ryan.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 36 is the monthly payment to Turner Construction.
so moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And resolution number 37 provides the monthly payments to the Tranche 1 contractors.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And resolution number 38 provides the payments for the Tranche 2 contractors.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And as we discussed with Chris, resolution number 39 allocates extra funds in the amount of $250,000 to the contractor at the Grant Middle School as a contingency.
So moved.
Second, Mayor, I'll second that. So, Chris, the monies from that came, was this from the contingency budget? So we don't think we're going to, that money we set aside was about 5 or 10%?
Correct. Well, two things. We, as part of their contract, we had an allowance that was within there, and then we identified a contingency amount. And we, as we said, we awarded some additional work over there, and as we move to the end here, so we're going to reallocate it, some additional monies to the contingency. But no, we're not, overall, we're not increasing the building budget. It was just increasing the contingency to be used for that, which we have to come back to this board for that authorization.
Okay, great.
Okay. So we had a motion, we had a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
That completes our resolutions for today.
Any other business to come before the board?
Mayor, yes, I just a quick question. So I know that the state has approved STEAM school. Is that something that would fall under JSCB? Everything is, approved and authorized. Would that be a project that would be looking to fall under the auspices of JSCB, or would that be a separate program?
And Jaime, you can fill in any blanks, but it would be separate. The part of the reason we needed the legislation was because we're doing it somewhat differently. The way we envision it happening is that the county, Onondaga County, who had offered to undertake the financing of the project, would become the building owner, and the district would lease the property from the county. So that would be done outside of JSCB.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it approved by SED?
We are waiting for approval from the governor's office, and then we will get the process going to go to SED. We have spoken to the Commissioner of Education, or former Commissioner of Education. She was in support of that. I have spoken to the Chancellor of the Board of Regents, Betty Rosa, and she's in support of the school.
So we're still waiting on the governor to sign the legislation, but we were, Jaime and I and the county executive were in Albany yesterday meeting with the Department of Budget, trying to get them comfortable with the numbers, but we think we're headed in that direction, and we'll go from there. But we'll certainly keep this board in the loop on that. We want to, wherever possible, model the best practices that JSCB has undertaken here.
Perfect.
Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Just to send you that too.
Okay.
Yes, you too.